Well, with Partygate once again in full swing, and of course the Sunak report now out there, we now know the full details. And to be honest, we already knew what the full details were. Boris Johnson has basically let probably one of the most important functions and probably one of the most important officers in the country be turned into, well, what can only be described as, well, party central. And it was done on his watch, under his guidance. He is the one who encouraged this. He is the one who set this up. It is his personal secretary who was involved, and the direction that this has gone. And this is not the first scandal Boris Johnson's been involved in during his very short time of being prime minister. We sort of knew this was going to happen. We looked at it. You looked at Boris Johnson's career, his time as being, London's mayor. Very similar things happened. And of course, we've now got to see what the parliamentary Tory party is going to do. That is what is going to be becoming important. That is what is going to be about next week, finding out just what it is these guys are going to do and what currently they're saying. Because remember, in what I dub as Partygate Part 1, we apparently, according to them, got close. They reckoned that they were about 4 letters off. That's how close they think they were last time. So it is really important that if we're going to think what is going to happen, what are the actions of these Tories, what are they going to do? Is Boris Johnson's authority as a prime minister completely gone? Because you saw what happened under Theresa May when her authority was gone. She had no control of her party. Has that now happened to Boris Johnson? Well, let's go diving into this piece from The Guardian, because it has some inside interviews and talks from people within the parliamentary Tory party. And these are the people and comments we need to look at, because this could be the guidepost for how things go. So, as always, before we do continue, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So, on with this. As I say, this comes from The Guardian, the title of "We're Going to Lose. We Deserve It." The view from inside the Tory party. And think about that. Just that quote alone. We're going to lose. We deserve it. From a party at the height of 2019, after it had won that absolute landslide victory, where the Tories felt absolutely invincible, to a situation where now we have all these crises of a party who has such a big majority. No one can stop them. Labour can't stop them. The Lib Dems can't stop them, even if they unite with the other parties, like, the SNP, the Northern Ireland parties that are in there. They can't stop them. The only thing that has stopped a lot of these really bad Tory bills we have seen has been the House of Lords. And as I've said before, I really do not like the House of Lords, but I'll tell you what, I'm certainly glad for the past couple of years that it's been there. So let's get on into this. It's supposed to be make your mind up time for Conservative MPs, but having waited 6 months for Sue Grays to report into the law-breaking parties across Westminster, many are still grappling whether to clear Boris Johnson's path to the next general election or oust a man who won them an 80-seat majority. And that is, as we've said before, that election magic that we've talked about. What is already clear is that the boastful proclamations from Johnson supporters this week, claiming that the Prime Minister's position was safe, have now proved premature. The drip of no confidence letters has continued, while dozens have kept their silence, as well as they consider their suit for following next week. Which again, next week, we could get a vote of no confidence. We don't know. And of course, there remains significant unease that the slump in the opinion polls is not recoverable, given that the Tory lead has not been recorded since the 6th of December. We're going to lose and we deserve it, one minister sighed, reflecting on the path ahead. We're on our way out. The talk of the 54 letters needed to trigger a vote of no Jonson's premiership has bubbled up again. On Friday, Jonson suffered the first resignation since the Grey Report. Paul Holmes quit as a ministerial aide to the Home Secretary with a jibe at the, quote, toxic culture that seemed to have permeated Number 10. With only 3 people having publicly confirmed that they've rescinded their letters of no confidence when the war of Ukraine began, the Prime Minister's position is far from stable. One MP who is no enemy of Jonson's acknowledged, I think he is in more danger now than he was on Wednesday. The government hopes that the Chancellor's multi-million pound support package to try and soften the blow of the spiralling food and energy costs will help shore up support. But many Conservative MPs are frustrated at being forced into a U-turn again, this time on the implementation of a windfall tax. And as we've said before on today's Good Morning Walk, many Conservative MPs are not happy that they have been forced into this U-turn. They were just marched up the hill just last week to vote against Labour's bill of bringing in a windfall tax. And now they've been told, right, well, you voted against it last week. Now you're going to vote again for it in the coming weeks for this, support package. And it's not the first time this has happened. Not the first time at all this has happened. So, of course, the fiscal Conservatives are especially frustrated at Sunak's insistence that he is a low-tax Chancellor, while simultaneously announcing a 25% levy on oil and gas firms' profits and withholding the promised tax cuts, possibly until the next general election. The move saw him accused by Tory MP Richard Drax of, quote, throwing red meat to the socialists. And again, this isn't exactly a socialist move. You can go all the way back to the days of Margaret Thatcher, where Margaret Thatcher not only put a windfall tax on banks, but also on oil and gas companies as well. So it's not a, quote, socialist thing to have done this before. The Tories did it under Margaret Thatcher. Craig McKinley said that he was disappointed, embarrassed, and appalled at a Conservative Chancellor could come up with this tripe. Again, a perfectly good plan that would help hundreds of thousands of people currently in this country. Tripe. This is the current state of the Conservative Party. And as we've said a long time ago now, the Conservatives do just not care about the people in this country because it's not what they're there to do. Others have privately complained that it was appallingly bad and demonstrated that we have no narrative. Robert Hayward, a Tory peer and polling expert, told The Guardian there was a sense within the party at large, not just the parliamentary party, of malaise and drift. I fear a slow and painful death of this government, said one frontbencher. He has caused many problems, and we can't even talk about the real issues of the day to begin to tackle them. They describe the situation as depressing and embarrassing. Again, interested to know who that frontbencher actually is. By far, the biggest issue is the sense that the government is now tiring and disjointed. New modelling from the YouGov found that of the 88 battleground constituencies the party took from Labour at the last election or currently holds with a majority of less than 15 points, just 3 would remain in Conservative hands. And among those could actually swing red is Jonson's own seat in West London. That would be amazing if that happened at a general election. Just think of that. A prime minister losing their seat. That's if, of course, Jonson survives to the next general election. On Partygate, the government's anti-corruption czar, John Penrose, crystallised the conundrum faced by those who hoped it would deliver a more stinging verdict and are now waiting for the Privileged Committee to begin its investigation into whether or not Jonson misled Parliament. Quizzed on whether the MP should quit, Penrose said, "Forgive me, I'm still thinking about that. So I'm going to sleep on that because it is the Grey report hasn't put the issue to bed one way or another. It could be months. For one of those reasons, I'm sounding so angry and frustrated. I was expecting us to be able to have a crystallized answer now, and we haven't flipping got it." So as you can see, there's a lot of anger, because a lot of people, if you remember just a couple of weeks ago, was saying the Sue Gray report is going to force Jonson to resign. It is that bad. And trust me, the Sue Gray report is bad, but Jonson just hasn't resigned. And ultimately, that's what's happened there. It now may be up to the Privilege and Standards Committee to find out just what went on. But again, that could take another couple of months. But those hearings will be just as interesting, I'm sure. Anyway, but some now feel able to judge more lucidly the severity of the situation, and certain opponents of Jonson smell blood. They have been offering to deliver colleagues letters and a sense of opportunity over the upcoming recess to nudge waverers over the line because they believe Graham Bradley, the chair of the 1922 committee of the backbenchers, would not alert Jonson if the threshold was reached while the Commons was not sitting. The number of people who have publicly called on Jonson to face a vote is halfway to 54, and several MPs intimated to The Guardian that they have submitted a letter privately, some who have never done so before and are asking how to do it discreetly. So that is interesting. The likelihood of we could see that a vote of no confidence happening next week seems to be growing. It might not happen, but again, we've been here before, and last time this happened, as we said at the beginning, we were 4 letters off. With one saying, apparently here, number 10 is utterly delusional if they think this has gone away. It just hasn't, said a waverer who claimed that their inbox was piling up with outraged emails. And not from the, quote, usually bitchy people, but people we've never heard of and Conservative members. What have I said? Every time one of the Jonson defenders or his mug has been one of the recent ones that, oh, this anger is not real. No, the anger is very real out there. Trust me on that. And it's not just non-conservative supporters, it's the Conservative supporters themselves. Many who felt at the last local election they were sacrificed because of Boris Johnson. Because when they were door knocking, the number one issue wasn't the ability to be able to discuss, the issues going on locally. It was Boris Johnson. So this was another one said. Another said they had wished the Prime Minister had received a second Partygate fine from the police to provide enough cover for them to submit a letter. But opponents of Jonson admit that it is still a struggle to get enough colleagues to move against him, given the unpredictable nature of the leadership contest that could follow and the lack of appetite for either Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss. As I've said before, this is what could happen. That leadership contest could be very unpredictable. And there's still 2 frontrunners, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. And if it gets down to them, to those final 2, Liz Truss walks it. Liz Truss is still the most popular member among the Conservative non-parliamentary party. And remember, that last vote, that last round, it goes to the Conservative Party members to vote for who they want. It's no longer MPs get to decide at that point. the party members get a vote on that point as well. And she walks it. If she gets those last two, she walks it. It's hers to win. Another one saying, it's harder to get 54 than 180 in some ways, one noted, comparing the number needed to trigger a no confidence vote and the number needed to win it. The Jonson get out in February, when his position was most perilous over Partygate and the failure to deliver conservative policies, was the war in Ukraine. But the argument might not hold if the conflict continues for months or years. It is what this is looking at. This is going to be a long haul situation. That argument, it wasn't even valid in the first place. Remember, France just had a big presidential election during that time. So this argument of, oh, we can't do it because there's a war on, doesn't hold water. With one Tory rebel saying, people need to wake up and start realizing we don't need another Churchill, a Tory rebel said. We just need something better than Boris. I think that sums it up very, very clearly, because there is a lot of Conservative MPs and a lot of talk when we've discussed this in the past of we don't know who the successor is. But the path is incredibly clear. It would either be Sunak or Truss. And if Truss gets the final two, she walks it. And as I've said before, if you wanted to put money on who would be the next Conservative Prime Minister, your best bet would be Liz Truss. But heaven help us from a Truss premiership. I put it this way: she will be she will be bad. She will be bad. Don't get me wrong. Probably not as much as Boris Johnson, but she will have an inability to be able to control all the factions that have arisen since 2016, since the European Research Group proved that, these small yet tiny factions can wield incredible power within their party, and there are now parties within the party. The Conservative Party, as we've said for a long time, has sown its own seeds for a very, very uncivil war. And trust me, if it does come to a leadership election, it is going to be a bare-knuckle slugfest, because no one is going to hold back on that. I guarantee you. So, with that said, thank you very much to those for watching. Thank you very much. Please don't remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.